Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Lüning, Horst Lüning, and I'm the master taster of Whisky.com. And today we have two very special, very good, extremely, not seldom, no, they are quite available, but very good Kentucky straight bourbons here on my cask. One is the Bakers and the other is the Bookers. And both of them come from the big bourbon company Jim Beam, and they carry the name of the ancestors of the actual Beam family, are the descendants of the Jim Beam who founded the company. And here I have some videos of two Jim Beam whiskies I tasted so far. Sorry, those two whiskies belong to the small batch bourbon collection, which was established in 1988, I think. And to this collection belongs also the Knob Creek and the Basil Hayden Kentucky Straight bourbons. Those four and the other two I still have to taste. I tasted already the Knob Creek rye whiskey. There's a video of this whiskey here. So these four whiskies belong to a series of small batch bourbons which are advertised together. So the advertisement budget is spread on multiple bottles, and they are quite popular now. And we start today with the Bakers, and the Bakers has 107 degrees proof, which is 53.5% absolute by volume. And for these whiskies, the distillery or the master distiller chooses a special cask from the distillery. And how are these casks chosen? Well, they are looking, or they know where the good casks lie. They knew where the best casks came from, and so they may select the best casks from their warehouses. Well, there are a lot of best casks, and so they decide which character matches their intention for the Bakers or the Bookers or the Knob Creek or the Basil Hayden. So for every of these small batch bourbon bottles, they have their special best casks they select. Small batches mean they do not fill bottles in tens of millions like the Jim Beam White Label, but they choose a few dozen casks for a single bottling. And after that, when the whiskey is bottled and sold, and the distributors ask for more, then the new batch is selected from the different warehouses, is mixed and filled into the bottles. The Bakers has its name from, a grandnephew of Jim Beam himself, and he lived until the 60s, 70s in the last century. And he was one of the distillers when Jim Beam was sold from the family business, which came well over the Prohibition times, and they sold the distillery to American brands, which then went into Fortune Brands and was lately in 2014 sold to Suntory, the Japanese holding company. Something more? No, I think this is it. The bottle is very untypical because it's a wine bottle. Bakers Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, aged 7 years, so quite a lot for a bourbon. And from this he has this wonderful mahogany color. Sour mash whiskey. Well, sour mash, close to every bourbon is sour mash. That means that you put the residue from the fermentation or even the distillation you put back into the fermentation tanks, and this has a very low pH value, so it's sour, and this helps the yeast to ferment. So this sour mash helps to start the fermentation, so the fermentation runs very fast. Remember the original small batch bourbon collection trademark. Batch number, well, there are small batches. Kentucky State Bourbon Whiskey. My bourbon follows our Beam family tradition of putting our best secrets inside the bottle, not here on the label. I've distilled 6 generations of bourbon skill into this bottle. That's a lot of secrets. Please savor its smooth flavor over ice. No, I will never do that. With a splash of water. Well, that's it. Or however you take your bourbon. Well, he sells to everybody. Baker Beam, distilled and bottled by James B. Beam Distilling Company, Claremont, Commonwealth of Kentucky, USA. Well, there's a lot of history in it. The Commonwealth of Kentucky. This opens very well. It's kind of seal, and there's a sticky tape. Wonderful and oily liquid. A lot of vanilla, caramel, and not that fruity. There's a alcoholic note, yes, but more fruit, less alcohol. You can bring the alcohol out of the whiskey if you're shaking the whiskey and drive the alcohol off, and then you start again with turning the whiskey, and then it's less alcohol and more fruit. It's not that intense on the nose as I remember it. I had it several years ago and it was very, very intense. But here, more fruity, little caramel, vanilla, but not that captivating as it was before. Well, these are small batches, and every batch has its different appearance, change in taste. And I typically give a little water if the whiskey has over 50% ABV. So here we go. It's 51 from 53. It wasn't that much water, no. Less, more fruity. Less caramel. And now we have the first sip. Still a lot of power. Yes. A little spiciness. Mouth-watering. Yes. Oily. Buttery. And there's sweetness. And sweetness together with spiciness. It's a spicy sweetness. Chutney. Some walnuts, hazelnuts. I'm afraid I do not like those nuts, because in the right time of the year I have some allergic reaction to nuts. But there are no nuts in this whiskey, no. It's the remembrance of your brain for nuts. Spiciness. Very intense. And those nuts are a little bit like roasted hazelnuts. And a little sweetness, and the sweetness is, I don't know. It's honey? No. Maple syrup. That's more sweet. No, it's sweeter. Caramel and vanilla. Have a second sip. After the second sip, a second gulp, the oakiness is becoming stronger. There's a slight note of bitterness in it. And it's no longer that sweet, no. The spiciness is taking over. It's a wonderful, complex Kentucky straight bourbon. And as I said, it's a small batch, so every batch will be different. This batch went to Europe, so it might be a completely different batch to that what you're tasting on your side of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific. And I had one before which was very difficult with adding water, and it was a lot more covered with vanilla. But this one is as intense as the other was, but it's more on the fruity and more on the spicy side. Not that much on the fruity and vanilla and caramel side. So a wonderful Kentucky straight bourbon, and it's not that expensive. It's a lot more. It costs a lot more than typical bourbons do, but they are not that expensive as the single malt whiskies are. So it's a wonderful whiskey for a very good price. Thank you for watching, and have a look at our database, at our whiskey database on Whisky.com, and add your comments about the taste in this whiskey base. Thank you very much.